Mbappé and how I feel about it at this point on, I guess, on an emotional level. And this will tie on to my next point about, is Mbappé a snake? Is Mbappé like a traitor? Is he a rat for leaving the club and so on and so forth? On an emotional level, when I heard it, I was a bit bummed that, that he's leaving, so on and so forth. However, that being said, to call him a snake, I think is really a stretch. Are there things that he's done that have been questionable and that you put into question? Absolutely. Has he oftentimes done things that are not in the interest of the club? Absolutely. However, to go and say that he's been a snake, that he's like a traitor to the club, like if Mbappé goes, if you've known for 3 seasons at minimum that Mbappe's had made known his desires, at least that he'd flirting with the idea of going to Real Madrid, and once I'm explicitly asking that he wants to leave. In 2022, when he did sign, it was between you and Real Madrid that he wanted to sign. Last year, even when he did sign that contract, a couple of weeks later, went on to go and send a letter saying that he has no intentions of signing that extension. If you know all these things a year in advance, and then when he comes and says, I'm leaving now, and you say that's a traitor, I mean, I don't know. For me, traitor is like he goes, everything seems fine, there's a contract extension, and then bang, he decides to stiff arm the club, decides to go on strike, stops coming to training, and then leaves and forces his way out of the club. It's not that situation. And so in my eyes, I can't call him Mbappé a snake. And I'd say my issue too with people, some PSG fans would go as far as to say that, oh yeah, he's respected the club and this and the other. And has he? Absolutely. I'm not denying that. And in particular, looking at the whole Monaco debacle in him going and, doing his little victory parade, going out like Caesar, doing a little victory tour around the 𝘭𝑪, and then going to the stand, sitting with his mom, I think is absolutely disgraceful. I think for actions like that, I think Mbappé should have been stripped of the captaincy. Arguably should have been benched for the return leg of the �々𝘗 game. However, to go as far as to say that he should never wear the colors of a PSG jersey, I think is too much of a stretch. I didn't see many of those people last season when Messi literally skipped training, did not go to training, was in a completely different country. Like, they weren't clamoring for him to never ever wear their jersey again. And if they did, it was a much smaller voice compared to the number of people who are clamoring for Mbappé to never, set on the pitch for under PSG colors again. So I'm not going to go that far. I think in situations like this, I think it's important to, yes, go in and look at it critically and say, okay, this is what Mbappe's done. Yes, he's done a great load of good, but also not to in the fact that in the things that he's done that irk you and whatnot, to not also swing the pendulum the other way and say that this guy is like an enemy of the club and that he doesn't care at all about the club. Like, you can say that he's not the most, perhaps you could say that his number one priority is not the club. Fair enough, yeah. But to go on to say that Mbappé has no care whatsoever at all for PSG is a huge stretch, and I think it's being massively disingenuous. I think that especially as he's grown, I think as he spent more time at the club, I think he does have an attachment to the club, a love for the club to a certain degree. Perhaps not in the way that I would want, certainly. I think I'd like him to have a closer one, but certainly a relationship with the club. And I think he will leave the club as a PSG legend. Some people will say that he's not your number one, and he can't be because of his actions. That's fair. But to go and to now say that he should never ever wear the club jersey ever again, this and the other, I think is far too much of a stretch. And the thing that honestly irks me the most about Mbappé is the fact that he can go and in 1 week, like the Monaco game, go and do stuff like that, completely abandon his team, go to the stands when you're in a game where he hasn't played well, is subbed at halftime, the team's not particularly playing well to this and the other, you've got a huge tie in the Champions League coming up, and he does that, but then a couple of days later puts a masterclass like he did against Real Sociedad, scoring 2 absolute bangers and being quintessential in sending you through to the knockout stages, to the quarterfinals of the Champions League. So he's able to do both those things at once. So I don't know. It's difficult. I guess nothing yet to this point he hasn't said anything officially himself. Although at this point, I think, and this alludes to what I was saying earlier and how I don't really trust anything unless it comes from Mbappé. At this point, I do think that I guess I have to caveat this and I guess backtrack a bit on that statement and saying that in this time around, I think it's a lot more real than it once was, because this time, at this point, you've got, I think it was Danilo Pereira at one point, he said that, no, he gave a speech in front of the players saying that he's leaving. We've had Luis Enrique several times when he's asked that he's like, we're going to have to get used to playing without Mbappé. All things alluding to that he's not going to be there next season. So I think the fact that at minimum that he's leaving PSG, I think those are reasonable. I think it's beyond any reasonable doubt that's done, that Mbappé will not be a PSG player next season. Now, the fact that he's going to be a Real Madrid player, I think is the most likely scenario. I think most people think that's the case, but I guess nothing yet has been concrete and done. And so I guess until that's done, I won't go and say it's official yet. But certainly the fact that he's leaving the club is done.